this fast. Oh, I am. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So you came to hear me talk to you in hopes that I'll say something intelligent and useful. I'm with you on that. Okay, so I decided to do this presentation on audiobooks, which falls more under technology than anything else, since there was no category for literary stuff. But I've always been a technophile, and I said, hey, this is something I'm passionate about, so I thought, okay, I'll just give a talk on it. This was my first audiobook, come to think of it. Just for full time's sake, I'll play you this clip. This was my first audiobook, and we actually had a whole lot of these, both on vinyl record and on cassette. A lot of Disney ones, several Star Wars ones.
Check to make sure that you're still on the Penguicon, because when you're in this end of the building, it switches to the meeting one.
Thank you very much. Okay.
This is the story of Star Wars. You can read along with me in your book. You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear R2-D2 beep like this. Let's begin now.
This guy actually scanned the pages. You can still do this today, by the way, read along with audiobooks. I played and replayed that, and that's probably how I fell in love with Star Wars music more than any other reason. And as I thought about making this presentation, I thought my love of audiobooks goes all the way back to that. Okay, disclaimer, boring legal stuff. But since I'm recording myself doing this presentation, I decided to put this in here. Oh, yeah. By the way, you might notice some things like this, that the presentation is not completely complete. There is an agenda and it's all in here, but why audiobooks? Well, the average American spends as much time in a car in a year as they do as a full semester in college. If you do the math on that, assuming a 30-minute commute. And if your commute is longer, I've even had commutes that were an hour and a quarter, 75 miles for 75 minutes. That's added up to 3 hours a day for one semester. 240 hours minimum spent per year driving with a 30-year assumed commute. Compare that to, say, for example, one of the longest books that's ever been published, the Bible. That takes only 70 hours to read from cover to cover. So audio learning, somebody pointed this one out to me. Audio learning is the only type of learning that you can do while multitasking. I can do it while driving, exercising, doing chores, including yard work, washing dishes, sorting laundry, walking, and if you want to, you can actually read along with your book. Some people might find that helpful to get the story or the information into their head. My story is that I started college in 1997, and I commuted 30 hours.
That's long for you.
I commuted 30 minutes back and forth from St. Clair Shores, Michigan to Lawrence Tech University in Southfield. And within 2 to 3 weeks, as I recall, I very quickly realized that this time was both completely necessary and completely unproductive. And it was going to be a lot of subtraction out of the hours of my life, one way or another, and I wanted them to therefore be useful and productive. So I started going to the public library, and I started checking out audiobooks. And I gravitated towards the juvenile section, believe it or not. I did go a few times into the adult section, but there were very few books there that I found that were of any interest to me or worth. 1984 was one of the exceptions. Sources for audiobooks. You can go to the public library and their networks, both electronic and not electronic, eBay and Amazon, and I mean this in all formats, by the way, eBay and Amazon, Audible.com, which was an independent company, started for audiobook downloads in 1999 and was bought by Amazon a few years later. LibriVox, which I'll explain in a few slides, and then used book sales and used music stores. You might be surprised actually to go to a used bookstore or a used music store asking for their audiobook section. John King Books has a section for that. Oh yes.
Where in John King bookstores? I've been there, I've never seen it.
It's on the first floor.
As soon as you walk in.
Not as soon as you walk in. You have to go down the main aisle, I think, and then actually turn to the right at an unexpected point.
Okay.
And then you'll find the shelf right there.
All right.
So John King Books, my favorite bookstore in Ann Arbor is the Dawn Treader on Liberty Street. And they're huge for a used bookstore, but they have an audiobook shelf there as well. I've gone to used music stores, such as Encore Records, also on Liberty Street. They have a small section for audiobooks. I got a copy of Charlotte's Web there, as a matter of fact, read by the author. How about that? Public libraries. I got my first library card when I was in first grade. Would have gotten it in kindergarten, but they didn't let me. And I was angry at that. Public library system, by the way, was created by Ben Franklin, which I thought was a very cool thing to learn, both about public libraries and about Ben Franklin. You can get a public library card for any city that you live in, work in, or attend school in. Go there, present your credentials, and you should be able to get the card. So your public library offers access, well, I'll say free access, but not really because it's taxes. But it's way more than just its own native collection, which is what you always think about. Oh, if it's not in the four walls, then I can't get it. Not true. In addition to the native collection, there's also something, this is for Michiganians, the MEL, the Michigan E-Library Exchange, which is a system, used to be, a few years ago, it used to be limited to only within the same county. And then this system, I guess, was put in place of that. And now I've gotten stuff as far away as Ironwood, Michigan, which is just about, from Milan, Michigan to Ironwood, Michigan is about as far as you can get and still remain in the state. I'm only 25 miles from the border. And Overdrive, which you may have heard about, which is a service, it's a commercial service, I believe, but public libraries can subscribe to it. And then the patrons using their library cards can go in there and electronically check out audiobooks. I won't do a demo of that, but I do have some screenshots. And then WorldCat, I'm not sure what you can actually use it to check out, but it's a project that's conceived to, I believe, catalog everything in every library. I haven't used that myself, though, WorldCat. Free audiobooks for the blind. Originally, not originally necessarily, but when audiobooks first really started being produced, they were produced only for the blind. And you literally could not get a certain copy of an audiobook unless you were blind back in the 1970s, because it wasn't, nobody realized that there was a market for it, or nobody had enough tape players in their cars yet, etc. But these are some photographs that I just took this past Wednesday, as a matter of fact, at the Ann Arbor District Library, downtown branch. This is the special, I'll say special needs room. But even as I walked past the room that day, there was a blind person in there using the computer with a keyboard. They have a scanner in there and different things, and then they have this display case which displays various devices. This one in the upper right here with the green cassette case is, I guess, how it would have arrived. You notice that on the buttons on that tape player, you might see that it's tactile. You can actually feel the symbols. And then on Tuesday, this past week, I got to speak with somebody who had a blind person as a roommate for several years in about 1991. And there was a free audiobook program where he would literally get the catalog in Braille, use punch cards to select which ones he wanted, and they would arrive in the mail. And because you don't need nearly as high sound quality for speaking as you do for high quality music, the tape player and the tapes were slowed down so much that you could get an entire audiobook on that one cassette, for example.
My wife was blind and subscribed to the Farmington Library's books for blind.
Yes.
And the tape player, not only did it slow everything down, it was a four-track tape player. So you actually had 4 sides on a single cassette. You had the right channel, the left channel on side A, right channel, left channel on side B.
Oh, it was stereo then too.
Okay, it took advantage of the stereo capabilities of a cassette.
It wasn't an 8-track type of thing moving the head necessarily. Well,
Actually, yeah, that's.
Yeah, it was.
But
anyway, left and then right.
Yeah.
And then flip it over left and right.
Uh-huh.
A couple of modern audiobook companies have done that. Brilliance Corporation has done that. The problem with that is that you literally need a stereo player with the control to shut off one of the ears.
But the Michigan Department of Labor will give blind people the tape player. Give it for free. Okay, if you wanted to buy one, it would run you probably about $600.
Yeah.
But if you're blind, the Michigan Department of Labor will give you one.
It's not everything's available in Braille, I know, so that must be pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Yes?
With the new version of Kindle's coming out, the Kindle Fire has a text to audio option on it too.
Aha.
Not all of them do. You have to get the Fire, which is like the Kindle White or something like that, will do it. And it's blind. So he's looking to buy a new one. So he's looking at the Kindle Fire.
Now, in 3 years, imagine where we'll be.
Yeah, true. That some of the author, it's all somewhat dependent on the author. So there's some you like to listen to that they're not putting that audio or that option for it. So
Actually, if you convert it, not that I'm recommending that anyone does this, but if you remove the DRM from pretty much any of the standard electronic books, you can use FB Reader.
what?
FB Reader? FB Reader.
He is the dog, he is a baker.
He is a baker.
Okay.
And that has an add-on that you can add on to it that will do text to speech.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's a PC program?
It is available for Android. I don't know about other platforms.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then you notice on the bottom right here, there's this more modern player that's digital, not tape. And this is what the sign here says. Digital player. In 2009, NLS introduced digital talking books and players. Cassette-based talking books are being phased out and replaced by digital talking books. New digital book players like this one have the capacity to skip backward and forward in chapters with the touch of a button. There's nothing new, I suppose, for digitals, but advanced digital players are also available for users interested in placing bookmarks in books and using the players for more research-based needs. They use a flash memory cartridge because they are durable and easy to use. Avoid boring people is the name of that. So really, I guess this is no different than any smartphone, except that the buttons here are tactile. You can see them, you can feel by the shape which one you're pressing. MEL, Michigan E-Library Exchange. I love this, because I live in Milan, Michigan, which has a population of 5,000 people. And even though the public library is only a mile down the street and I can walk to it, they don't really have a whole lot, especially if you're looking for a specific person, say Isaac Asimov. They do have a lot of selection of others. But anyway, so I get onto Mel. You can do this from anywhere on the internet, even on my iPhone, because it does not require Java or Flash to use this. You use your ordinary library card, say I belong to the Ann Arbor District Library, here's my library card number. And you can search by keyword, author, title, series title, ISBN, etc. And find, okay, where in Michigan, for libraries that are connected themselves with this, where in Michigan can I get this particular item? Even if there's multiple different editions, you can specify the ISBN if you want. And then, matter of fact, okay, demo, right? And then what happens is that when that title arrives at your library, you receive an email saying, oh, it's there for 10 days, go pick it up. You can even renew it twice if nobody else has reserved it. And that's been very helpful. I've been able to access a whole lot more than just what the Ann Arbor Library has or the Milan Library has. Overdrive. These are, so what do we have here? These are screenshots from the Overdrive front page, on their home page, and on the right is the iTunes screenshot of the Overdrive app for iPhones. And it's also available for other smartphones. I'm just not familiar with it because I have an iPhone. But what
Does that work like Audible, where you purchase the books?
this is not purchasing the book. This is you using your library card
Okay.
to. This is you using your library card through your library, which subscribes to this service, and you can say, I want to listen to what was the one by Bethany Hamilton. I don't remember. She was a girl who got in the shark accident, and she wrote a book after she lost her arm. And that book is now an audiobook.
Soul Surfer.
Soul Surfer, thank you. And so you can go on there, and I was just browsing through them. Okay, I like this one. You can, if you don't have a smartphone, but you still have an MP3 player, you can use your computer to download it and then load it onto your MP3 player. If you have a smartphone, then you can download it right to your phone from the internet. I can sit here and literally download that book without getting up from my seat, and then listen to the whole book. And when it expires, you can renew it once or twice. When it expires, the files automatically delete themselves.
So how does that work? If you're doing, I understand, obviously the smartphone, they can do that easily. But if you're doing it the other way, you download it from your computer, you load it to your MP3 player, how does it delete itself?
You mean a more simple MP3 player? Actually, I'm not sure because I haven't tried that. That's a good question. Sorry, I don't have the answer. Try it and let me know. And then audible.com. I guess some people like it and some people don't like it. But this Audible is a website where you can go and purchase a digital copy of it. It's very digital rights managed though. You have to authorize your specific device to be able to play that specific audiobook. And you have to load the specific software and link it with iTunes. It sort of does it itself, but it seems to be a bit of a pain to set it up. But you can buy audiobooks individually here, or you can get on 1 or 2 different level subscriptions. And the minimum one is $15 per month, which on the whole is a bargain, since if you wanted to generally buy these on CD, they'd be at least $30. Let's see, if you do ever want to unsubscribe, that's difficult to do, impossible. They hide it so well. You have to call up, wait on hold, get a human being, and then say, here's my account, I want to unsubscribe. You still keep access to everything. You can still re-download it as much as you want if you ever need to, but it's to stop the trickle out of your water faucet. It's tough. LibriVox. There's commercial, and then there's volunteer. There's good things and bad things about each one. Commercial, a whole lot of stuff is available, and the quality is high, but it's expensive. Trade-off. Volunteer, not so well. A lot of stuff is available, but only if it's in the public domain or copyright or Creative Commons, etc. And but there's very little quality control. It's all there, but if you're listening to Treasure Island, for example, there's no guarantee that your reader is going to be very good at voice acting.
And that is the case in the commercial stuff.
Oh no, I'm talking about volunteer.
But it is the case that they're good in the commercial stuff.
Well, that's not always the case, certainly, but I remember trying to listen to one recording of The Great Gatsby 3 times, and I said, I can't stand this voice actor. Years later, I found a different recording by a different voice actor, and I got through it just last year. And I actually enjoyed the book. After about 30% of the way through it, I wanted to say, what's happening next? So now I'm looking forward to the movie on that, as a matter of fact. But LibriVox, back to the point of this, LibriVox is a site that uses volunteers, and they use their computers and they make voice recordings of public domain text, and then that voice recording gets put into the public domain itself. And that's all listed and cataloged on this website here. If you want to volunteer, you can do that. On Tuesday night, I introduced somebody to this who speaks at least 4 languages. They take stuff from all languages. She speaks 4 languages, and she said she wanted to volunteer to read audiobooks for blind people. And I said, well, you're going to love this website. And so she said, holy smokes. And then she surprised me, and she searched for Marion Zimmer Bradley, who's not, she's only been deceased for a few years. It's not like Robert Louis Stevenson or William Shakespeare, but some of her stuff is on here. Even as completed audiobooks. The Colors of Space, The Door Through Space, The Planet Savers, The Year of the Big Thaw, and a whole lot of stuff. People have done Plato dialogues. One person reads Socrates, another person reads Critias, for example, the characters. And then there's also, I should mention this one, CC Prose. This is a YouTube channel that takes the LibriVox recordings and then syncs them with the text. So you can play the video on YouTube, you're listening to the audiobook and reading along, and turns the pages for you. Other sources, thoughtaudio.com, which is free, Americana 5, which is free, archive.org, which is free, and Learn Out Loud, which is paid, although they do have some free download stuff that they offer now and then. Thoughtaudio.com, he takes voice acting for that one is very good. I've downloaded a lot of stuff. He takes public domain stuff, he reads it with very high quality recordings. His name is Michael Shearer. And A Christmas Carol is a very good example. I've listened to that one 4 times by him. I listen to that one every year. And he does a very good job at voice acting. He edits very well. He makes his own cover art that you can download. And if you ever want to easily download everything from you have to download the individual files, chapter. But if you ever want to donate to him $10, then you get access to, now I can download the whole thing as a zip. That's a benefit for donating archive.org, that's the Internet Archive. I do not know a whole lot about it. I've looked for different things on there. I think Cory Doctorow, for example, that he read when he made Creative Commons recording of Alice in Wonderland, he put it on the Internet Archive. And Learn Out Loud, that's a pay site, but it's
Archive.org is a good one. If you go to conferences and they record the conferences,
oh yeah.
you can get them there.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
listen on their own site.
Archive.org hosts a lot of podcasts. Podcasts might be another good idea too, for audiobooks. I can think of say 3 or 4 books that I found via podcast. Either because the publisher said, okay, yes, we approve of you putting it on there, even though it's copyrighted, and that's how it got on, or it's public domain anyway, and somebody just read it. But archive.org hosts a lot of conference recordings, like this one, for example. I could put it on YouTube or the Internet Archive. They host a lot of podcast files. Brands for audiobooks. Listening Library. Listening Library. This is the young adult audiobook branch of Random House, and personally, they are my favorite. My favorite used to be recorded books because they occupy just so much of the market. It was by default if you wanted something, it was made by them. But Listening Library has done a whole lot of the ones that I love. They've done, if you name a young adult fantasy or science fiction, at least fantasy book that's been an audiobook, they are probably the publisher of it. Recorded books, they've done business for I don't know how many years, but they used to be, everyone used to have recorded books on the shelf at the library. Harper Audio, Simon & Schuster Audio, Brilliance Corporation. This one called Books on Tape, they date themselves with their name. That's literally the name of the company, even though nobody uses tapes. Maybe too many people don't use CDs anymore, even. Harper Collins Audio, Harper Children's Audio, and Commuter's Library. And then there's another sort of branch. Oh, yeah?
One you missed, Tantor Media.
Tantor Media, that's right. And Blackstone Audio.
Yeah, and Blackstone Audio. One of the nice things about Tantor is not all of their stuff, but a lot of their stuff is available strictly as MP3s without DRM. So.
That's very good. You don't have to hack your own device. One thing that I have done, I suppose I could say this. One thing I have done is, if I've bought never mind. As I was making this presentation, I also thought of audio dramas. Because if you listen to, for example, Will Shakespeare, well, Will Shakespeare is not literature. It's a play. It's taught as literature now, mistakenly. But it's really an audio drama if you want to listen to it. And there are websites for that too. But audio dramas, at least by my definition, include full cast, sound effects, and music. Things that actually fall under this are old-time radio, modern published audio dramas, a modern company called Graphic Audio, and William Shakespeare. So old-time radio, many of this stuff is in the public domain now. Another thing about public domain is that even though it's widely available, the copies you might run across might not be very high quality because there just hasn't been the effort put into preserving it too much quality-wise. But for example, all these ones that are represented here, The Shadow, Superman, X-1, which is the first radio show that I ran into of that kind, Crime and Detective, Old Time, The Lone Ranger, and like millions more that are not here. If you search for this guy's name, Humphrey Camardella, or maybe it's Camardello, can't remember whether it's an A or an O at the end. But he puts these all on podcasts. And because it's public domain, people do have the ability then, such as he, to publish it and offer it for sale if you want to buy it. So I should say that too. At least if I'm mentioning this, I should plug in that way. But because it's public domain, you can just download it. And then there's published audio dramas. Yeah, I'm mentioning Star Wars at least twice in this presentation where I'm wearing a Starfleet shirt. But in the early 1980s and then in 1991, a partnership between Lucasfilm and National Public Radio resulted in a many-hour dramatization of each of the original episodes of Star Wars, the Star Wars trilogy. And these are available for purchase on wherever you want to go. Focus on the Family Radio Theater has created dramatizations of The Secret Garden and other works like Les Miserables, which is in the public domain. And then they've also licensed the Chronicles of Narnia, and they dramatized all 7 Narnia books. And then Doctor Who has actually done many audio dramas, which is kind of neat because in an audio drama, even though it's 20 or 30 years later, Sylvester McCoy as a voice can still play the Doctor, and Colin Baker can still play the Doctor.
There's actually a company that every year they're doing new ones. And there's Sarah Jane Adventure ones, there's all the different Doctors.
What's some... I can't remember the name of the company that does the Doctor Who ones.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it either.
Well, if you search for it, you'll find it. Yeah.
Just a question, wasn't the original Hitchhikers originally a radio drama?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there any way you can get that?
Yeah. It's available on eMusic.
eMusic?
Ta-da!
Yeah. So it's in their audiobooks section, which is a separate subscription. But I know you can get it there. Okay, honestly, that's the only place I look because I found it right away. So.
There's other, not to differentiate, I guess I'm by necessity or whatever, I'm differentiating an audio, differentiating the book from an adaptation. But for example, Fahrenheit 451, that's been adapted into radio drama. It's, 1984 was adapted into a radio drama. And one way or another, I've just run across those things as I've searched podcasts for them and other places on the internet. Interesting audiobooks. Some interesting gems I've run across. Some of the first audiobooks.
Big Finish.
Big Finish. Big
Big
Finish
Finish.
Productions, that's right. They make the Doctor Who ones.
And there's also some BBC recordings going back to the 80s. The first Doctor Who audio production, 1976.
1976 for the first one.
So there may be
Wow.
stuff under the BBC that you can able to find.
Cool, thank you. Every now and then I run across some gems, like I mentioned E.B. White reading his own book, Charlotte's Web. That was, Charlotte's Web, as read by E.B. White, was a recording made in his own home in 1970. And because of that year, it makes me believe that that recording was originally meant only for blind people, like I said earlier. My guess is for this specific recording, you could not get it unless you were blind, which is really detrimental, a shame, actually. But if there wasn't a real market for it yet, then naturally they couldn't publish it, or there was no justification of being able to publish it yet. Other ones I've run across, I just searched for 8-track stuff on the internet one day, and I found Charlton Heston reading from first 5 books of the Bible. So just for novelty's sake, I bought that one. I did not bring it with me, but I meant to, just for show and tell. I found recordings of J.R.R. Tolkien reading from The Lord of the Rings. The earliest audiobooks that I'm aware of were actually poetry, and I found them in a music store on a large vinyl record. I don't remember who it was. And then probably Shakespeare too, on record. For digital Shakespeare, if you like Will Shakespeare digitally, you can go to these 3 websites. I mentioned learnoutloud.com before. They're a pay site, but they do have Shakespeare stuff there. Speakthespeech.com with hyphens, and then wiredforbooks.org. Both of those 2 are, I believe, free to download. But that includes, can't remember which ones, but they include a full cast, everybody reading their own lines, music, sound effects. The only detrimental thing about that is that you're not watching it on a stage, so that you cannot necessarily tell when the scene changes or who's speaking. So you might want to read along with your book on that one. Graphic Audio. This is a company that does modern audio dramas, and I haven't let's see. They do have some free stuff to download, some file stuff. Apparently from this website shot here, they also say that they have a free graphic audio mobile app. Oh yeah, that's right. That's how I listened to it. I downloaded the app, and then I downloaded some of the free offerings that they have. You'll try episode 1 if you like it. You'll buy episodes 3 through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So is that a graphic audio as in like a graphic novel?
I think that's where they get their name from, but it's sound only, if that's your question. The graphic audio, I think, is meant to mean that it's more than just voice. It's also sound effects and music. Devices, hardware. I've always been a technophile. I did almost nothing with my first Walkman tape player except listen to audiobooks on my bicycle. But cassette decks, audio CDs, MP3 CDs, which are not the same thing, by the way. MP3 CDs are CDs where the entire audiobook is on there in the form of MP3 computer files. And there are certain CD players, either in your car or personally, like this small one here, that can read the individual files on there as audio and play it through the speakers. Your smartphone of choice, and then a device called Playaway, which you may or may not have heard of. I also have a Playaway device, which I meant to bring for show and tell, but forgot. But here's a picture of, this is one of my absolute favorite books, Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson. This book has actually been read as an audiobook 3 times by 3 different authors, and was written in 1978. What this is a preloaded device for a single audiobook. What you do is you go to the library, or you can buy it, retail or otherwise, and you plug in a standard headphone set, and this, you can see at the top left here where it says read by Robert Sean Leonard. You flip that open, and it's actually the battery cap. You take a single AAA battery and you put it in there. And the only audio output is a headphone jack. That's the only way to connect it to any other device, as a matter of fact. And then you have these buttons here, which include the equalization, the power. SP means speed. You can play it at, I believe it's half speed, 1x and 2x. Volume up, volume down. Rewind momentarily, or skip back to the last chapter mark, or fast forward the same way. And then that button on the center bottom is the play and pause.
Those look very similar to the devices used at museums for walking
Oh yes,
tours.
yes.
Very similar to those.
They actually, it's about in real life. Yeah. This is enlarged to show texture, but
That's good.
in everyday life, it's a little bit smaller than my iPhone here. This is an iPhone 3GS, if you're curious. It's very light. The problem with the first generation of these is that the audio quality was very poor. So I checked one out when I first saw it, and I said, I can't stand this, and I stayed away for a long time because it literally was the quality of the narrator reading it to me over the telephone, and I just couldn't stand it. But since technology is advanced, now the quality is much better. It's at the level where you want it to be. Well, one trouble about this is that you cannot I found the interface to be pretty pokey, especially if you're a technophile like me and you already own a smartphone. So it's sort of like, why would even bother? But if you're really pushy away from technology, then this might be a very good way for you.
Or if that's the way your library has the book you want.
Yeah. So then there's also adapters, some more hardware. You got to get the audio into here in order to get it in here, one way or another, right? And so then there's, this is how I started out working with it, with a tape player adapter, and I would plug that into a personal CD player to graphic audio. And I would, so I take the CD player with the when my car only had a tape player. I would get the tape adapter. You probably know what this is, but if you don't, the magnetic head here just gets fed from the signal coming in from whatever device you plug it into. So I would take so I bought a personal CD player because I didn't have a CD player. Put the CD in there, plugged it into there, put it into the tape deck. Oh, okay. And it plays through the car speakers. You can do that with any device that you choose to hook up to it, such as a mini, well, this is not a micro tape player, but it's one of the first Walkmans, as a matter of fact. Micro tape players, I remember I got a micro tape player one time, and I was playing with that, trying to make my own versions. And then, yeah, MP3 CD player, this looks like it's from a car stereo. This is an FM brand of transmitter that I haven't really used. Something that looks like this, I would not count on it in terms of being able to transmit coherently and constantly. Earphones. In Michigan, as far as I know, in Michigan it is legal to drive with headphones on. I do not necessarily recommend it, or if you do, try to stay to only one ear and keep the volume at such a level that it doesn't distract you too much. Another FM transmitter, not sure who makes this, but this one goes to the car cigarette lighter, powers it. This is the control to put it on an FM frequency of your choice, and then it connects to your iPod or iPhone through the 30-pin connector I have there. And then this one here, this is called the Jabra Freeway. That's spelled J-A-B-R-A. J-A-B-R-A, and that's the best one that I've found so far. Freeway? Yeah, whatever the latest version is, I think it's called the Freeway. And this one actually has a Bluetooth transmitter in it as well. So what you can do is you can put your...
So was it transmitter or was it receiver?
Both. So it goes wirelessly from your phone to there to the FM stereo. But the trouble with any FM is that your reception and quality, even though you're broadcasting from only 3 feet away, you can get interference from weather or other stations overriding the signal, overpowering the signal, that is, and other stuff like that. There have been many times where I've been driving down the road and, oh, okay, well now I'm getting into an area where it's all fuzzy. And about 30% of the audio coming out now is fuzz rather than the book. So then I have to pause it, switch, earphone.
Is that one that, I know Motorola makes one where you can hit a button, and it'll do a certain delay with the best frequency your area is?
A certain what? Oh, you mean it'll auto scan?
Right, it'll say, oh, this is a good frequency here.
That's a good idea. The Jabra does not do it.
Okay.
There probably are devices that do.
Guys, I know Motorola makes one that does.
Cool. Thank you.
You need to look on these too, because if you have a car stereo, you get one that some of the digital ones will let you tune the frequency, but some will just go to like the next strong station.
Oh, yes.
So you gotta make sure
Some of
that
them.
the device you have that it will transmit, you'll be able to hear on your car radio.
Yeah, some of them are not depending on wherever you live and what the frequencies are of the local stations, you may or may not, this device like that may or may not be fully tunable. It'll only go to 101.1 and then 102.1 and then 103.1 instead of being able to switch and get between them.
Or they have, one of the ones I have has only like 4 presets. So,
Oh yeah, that's presets.
So you
Same
can
thing
look-
essentially.
You kind of need to look before you buy it, so what frequency it's going to be on, and then see you can tune to it.
So what's the solution to all of this, right? More technology.
Yeah, but also you need to make sure when those 4 frequencies are not BBS or something.
Well, for $69, you get to replace your stereo.
The best solution, yeah, for all you know, you may want to replace your stereo. This one, for example, has an input jack, input port right there.
A lot of them
And-
now have Bluetooth straight.
Yeah, and many cars, right now I have a 2010 Ford Escape. It has a system called Ford Sync, SYNC, which is made by Microsoft, and that can interact with my iPhone, cross-branding, and it can get the Bluetooth right from the iPhone, put it into the car speakers. It can connect with a 30-pin connector into the USB port of the car, and I can then use the car controls to skip back and forth. And it also has an auxiliary audio port that I can simply plug any device into, this or my other iPod or personal CD player, whatever else. Creating and converting audiobooks. I'm going to try to speed up here because that guy is telling me I have 5 minutes left. Okay, 27. Okay. Okay, creating and converting audiobooks. Recording tapes into computer files, I've done this myself. Found an interview, for example, with Boyd Alexander that was recorded in 1990. I bought it legitimately on eBay from the original publisher, and I said I want to preserve this. So I literally take my stereo, plug it into my computer, and use a freeware program called Audacity.
It's free software, not freeware. It's two very different.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Free software, not freeware, which is two very different things.
I'll have to get back to you on that one. It was free to download, I'll say that. But it's a very good audio recording and editing program for your computer. And then there's another, I'll say, shareware program called Chapter and Verse, which is by Loden Software, L-O-D-E-N. And that was very, very good. It interacts with iTunes. What Chapter and Verse does, do I have a screenshot? Oh, I do. Okay, Audacity. And, okay, so I'll get to it. Ripping CDs, you want to make sure you choose the right settings so you get the right quality. But if it's an audiobook, you don't need stereo necessarily. You can save half of your space if you only do mono. Okay, Audacity, here's a screenshot from Audacity, sourceforge.net. It's an excellent software. You can edit, you can copy, paste, insert other stuff, combine tracks together, adjust left and right volume, insert sound effects, silence, fade in, fade out, lots of stuff. It's really amazing what you can do with this free program. Almost everybody that records stuff for LibriVox records it using Audacity. Chapter and Verse. This is a screenshot, not very big. Chapter and Verse. This is an easy-to-use freeware Windows program, donations accepted, that interacts with iTunes and QuickTime via scripts to create single-file audiobooks. So what you can do is you can take, for example, the copy of Charlotte's Web that I bought on CD. I use iTunes to import that, or whatever other program, either to MP3 or, in the case of iTunes, M4A. And what this will do is then drag the files into this program. It will convert the MP3s to M4A if it needs to, and then it will combine all of the M4As into M4B. The only difference there is the end of a letter, B and A, but the trick is iTunes recognizes A as music and B as audiobook. And if you know iTunes and smartphone and iPhones, they handle them very differently. But you can create chapter marks in here, you can import cover art, you can change all the metadata for the file, and you can get the single audiobook as one file. If you have, for example, the Chronicles of Narnia, which is 7 books long, you can have one group in your smartphone, one group, the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, you go in there, part 1 is book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, book 7, and then the chapters of each individual one. Now you have one file for each of those 7 books, but they're all under the same group, at least on my iPhone. And it makes it, if you're obsessive about having things in order, that's for you. Recommendations of audiobooks. I recommend this one the most. The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander, narrated by James Langton. They did that just a handful of years before Lloyd Alexander passed away. James Langton does an excellent job. This series won Newbery Medal, got nominated for another Newbery Medal. It was published in the 1960s, and he's become an influence to young adult writers ever since. Harry Potter series, narrated by Jim Dale. He does an excellent job too. And then Charlotte's Web, as I said. And that's the end. Yay, I made it! Thank you very much. At 4 o'clock, I'm doing another presentation called Humor and Heresy in Mathematics. And that'll be I'll really have to struggle to zoom through that in 50 or 55 minutes.
Thank you. This is very good.